My name is Scott De Varona. I am the Program Director for the Michigan Department of Treasury 529 ABLE Disability Savings Program. I have spoken with OUCARES a number of times. As I mentioned to Amy and Kristen, you guys have a soft spot in my heart because my very first ABLE presentation was to OUCARES at Oakland University, probably 5 years ago now. So when Kristen reached out and said, hey, we'd like to have you come back, I was very anxious to get back in touch with you and to tell you what's happening with the ABLE program. So I'm going to start off like a lot of people in my career do. I'm going to give you a lot of stats and a lot of numbers because that's how I make my decisions. I look at the numbers and the numbers tell a story. So there are at least 20 million people in the United States that have a disability. It's 1 out of 9. Only 33% of those individuals are employed. A person with a disability or a household with a disability needs 28% more income to have the same standard of living as a household with.
I got audio on, so they can hear us.
Can you guys hear me?
There we go. Thank you, Scott. You went to mute, but now you're back.
Okay. I don't know where I left off, but I'm just gonna keep going. 25% of Americans with a disability live in poverty. 50% of those with a disability, if they don't live in poverty, they still have an income under $35,000. They are 3 times more likely to have difficulty paying bills. Households with a disability are 3 times more likely to be unbanked, meaning they don't have a bank account or any type of savings account. And the one that really scares me is up to 40% of households with disability cannot save for unexpected expenses and emergencies. And to make matters worse, people with disabilities who rely on state and federal programs for the benefits that they need are limited to $2,000 in assets to qualify for the benefits that they need. It's a catch-22, or as I like to call it, a catch-2000. For generations, the disabled population has been told, stay broke. Don't ever have more than $2,000 in assets, or you're going to lose the eligibility for the programs that you need. In 2015, that changed with the creation of the Federal ABLE Act. Congress realized that forcing people into poverty due to a disability is unsustainable. It prevents them from becoming economically self-sufficient. I work for the Michigan Department of Treasury, and we have long been advocates for financial literacy. We reach out to college kids and explain to them the perils of student loans. We reach out to families and say, save for college so you don't have to take out student loans. With the ABLE program, we are helping those with disabilities to become financially empowered. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed 30 years ago, and it was created to ensure those with disabilities are fully able to participate in society. It made public places like schools, museums, hospitals accessible to everyone, regardless of ability. However, the ADA didn't ensure that everyone had a way to save and invest for the future. They were still limited to $2,000 in assets. The ABLE Act now allows that. The disability community can now save, plan, and invest for their future expenses without jeopardizing their eligibility for the programs and services that they need. An ABLE account can be the first step in becoming financially self-sufficient. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules for ABLE accounts. I'm going to talk a lot about what you can use the money for, who's eligible. I'm going to do a very brief demonstration of how one would enroll in the ABLE program. And then I always leave time at the end for questions and answers. The reason that I do it at the end is if I open it up for questions during the presentation, somebody's going to ask me a question and I'm going to say, I got a slide for that coming up, I promise. So, so if you do happen to have a question on any of the slides that I'm presenting or anything that I happen to be talking about, you can put it in the chat or you can write it down. I just want to make sure that I give you all the information before I stop and answer questions. Fair enough? All right, away we go. So nationally, the rules I'm about to go over are throughout the country. There are 46 different ABLE programs available to you. If you live in Michigan, Michigan is a great program for you to be a member of, and I'm going to talk a lot about the Michigan program.
You want to watch
But the
it here?
rules are the same. The rules are the same whether you go to Ohio or Tennessee or Nebraska. You are limited to one account per person. The person with the disability owns these assets. It's their money, regardless of who put the money in the account, regardless of how it's funded. The money belongs to the person with a disability. Now, because we have a wide range of abilities in the disability community,
You want to watch it here?
the program does offer authorized legal representatives to help assist, to help set up, to establish, and to administer the accounts on behalf of a person with a disability. So if you are the power of attorney, legal guardian, parent, spouse, sibling, grandparent, representative payee as assigned by the Social Security Administration, you can open an account on behalf of a person with a disability and maintain control over that account to what extent you prefer. Medicaid benefits are not impacted by the ABLE assets, which means you are no longer limited to $2,000 in assets. You no longer have to worry about spending down exorbitant, in some cases, amounts of money to retain Medicaid eligibility. Furthermore, it's not just regular Medicaid that this provision regards. It's any program that Medicaid administers. So Children's Special Health Care Services, home and community-based waiver programs, any of those programs where Medicaid is the eligibility determinant, you no longer have to worry about that $2,000 asset threshold anymore because they do not consider the accounts, the ABLE account value in their eligibility determination. Medicaid does have the ability and the right to claw back any money that is left in an ABLE account when the beneficiary passes away. I realize that that is a #1 concern of families. They just can't fathom the thought of Medicaid claiming the money that's left in the account when the beneficiary passes away. And I completely understand that. The one thing that I can tell you is that Michigan Medicaid has never made a claim to the remainders of an ABLE account. In those cases where we have had a beneficiary pass away, the ABLE account proceeds become just like any other financial transaction. It's just like a bank account. It's no longer an ABLE account because it's not being used for disability expenses, but it becomes just like a 401k, and it goes through the normal heirship process, just like any other financial transaction, just like a bank account, an investment account, anything like that goes to the next of kin. If they had a will, it would go through their will. If it went through probate, it would go through probate. All of those same situations would apply to the remainders of an ABLE account. Now, again, I can tell you that Michigan Medicaid has never made a claim, but I can't tell you it will always be like that. They might decide to do Medicaid clawback in the future. So I want to make sure that that's very clear with people because I know that it is a #1 concern of this program. There are a number of states that are pursuing legislation to limit and or prevent Medicaid clawback. The ABLE NAST committee, which is a nationwide association of people like me, have requested that the Department of Treasury, that's the Federal Department of Treasury, the IRS, to come up with a time limit for Medicaid recovery so that we know when it ends. We don't want it to be open-ended and for them to claim something, try and claim something 5 or 10 years from now. So there are still some questions that are outstanding regarding Medicaid clawback, but the takeaway that I want you to have is that currently Michigan Medicaid does not make claims to the remainders of an ABLE account. One other national provision that I want to make sure everyone understands is that assets over $100,000 do count as a resource for SSI for their purposes. It does not change your eligibility. However, they will no longer send you that monthly benefit check once you reach that $100,000. Now, I have a number of clients who say, I don't want to lose that income stream. I want to make sure that Social Security pays me every single month. And it's a really easy remedy to that issue. Just don't have more than $100,000 in the account. When you start getting up to those amounts of money, start utilizing the funds, start paying for things out of the ABLE account, and you won't have to worry about that becoming a resource. Who's eligible to open an ABLE account? Anyone who became disabled prior to age 26. Does not matter how old you are now. It matters how old you were when the disability happened. So in the case of most people who are diagnosed with autism spectrum, it happens during their childhood. There are some cases where it doesn't get diagnosed until afterwards. But in order to qualify for the ABLE program, you must have been diagnosed by the age of 26. There is currently a provision in Congress today to raise the age of onset from 26 to 46. Because let's face it, when Congress was debating this, the intent of this program is to help individuals with disabilities and not limit it to those people who have disabilities that happen before age 26. Well, Congress being what they do, they wanted to limit this program, and they limit it to those who became disabled before age 26. That leaves out a number of people. That leaves out, in some instances, disabled veterans. It leaves out, in some instances, people with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, people who develop multiple sclerosis later in life. Those people currently cannot avail themselves of this program unless the diagnosis happened before age 26. So what I want you to know is today, you must have had the disability before age 26 in order to qualify for ABLE. You must also be eligible to receive SSI or SSDI because of that disability. You don't need to be receiving benefits. You need to be eligible for them. You could also have a condition listed on the Social Security Administration Compassionate Allowances List, which is a comprehensive and ever-changing list of conditions that the Social Security Administration deems as a disabling condition. Furthermore, the IRS does allow individuals to self-certify, meaning with a doctor's certificate, you can say, I have a disability. It happened before age 26. It's going to last longer than a year. I'm not eligible for SSI currently, and it's not a condition listed on the Social Security Administration Compassionate Allowances List, but I want to utilize an ABLE account, and they do allow self-certification in those instances. Okay, how much can you put in? For 2022, this calendar year, ABLE accounts can accept up to $16,000 deposited from any source. So for most clients, $16,000 is the annual cap that you can contribute into an ABLE account. For those individuals who have a disability and have a source of income, whether that is wages or commissions or business proceeds, if they have an income, they can contribute up to $12,880 in addition to the $16,000. So theoretically, a person in Michigan who has a disability and an income could shelter $28,880 this calendar year in an ABLE account. The IRS does allow rollovers from 529 education accounts, but they are still subject to those annual maximums. I talked to a number of families who begin saving for their child's future educational endeavors before a disability manifests itself. And now they have this collection of money that is specifically earmarked for education, and the child may not go on to post-secondary education because of a disability. And Congress said, yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You've got this money that's earmarked for education and it can't be used for education. So why don't we let people roll it into an ABLE account? And Congress does. They do allow us to roll money from a 529 education account into an ABLE account. Congress is also investigating special allowances for significant one-time deposits, like, for instance, life insurance payments. If somebody gets a life insurance payout that's over $16,000, I can't do anything with more than $16,000. Similarly, when the Social Security Administration makes a determination and awards back payments, If it's more than $16,000 in a calendar year, again, I can't help with that. Same thing with proceeds of a lawsuit. If a lawsuit, allows a person to collect, say, $50,000, well, I can't do anything more than with that $16,000. So Congress is looking at allowing additional contributions for those special circumstances. Nothing has happened yet. Nothing has moved through Congress yet. Quite frankly, nothing is moving through Congress at all right now. But if that changes, we will, of course, be one of the states that adopts those changes, because we do have those situations where an individual has a significant, they call it a windfall, where they have to contribute money to maintain their benefits. And at this point, an ABLE account can't help them. Okay, here we go. The number one question that I get. I've created this account. I'm eligible for this account. I open an account. I put money in. What can I do with the money? Well, the IRS is actually very specific, and they say the money must be used for qualified disability expenses. And that's the acronym that you need to understand when you're talking ABLE accounts. It's all about qualified disability expenses, QDE. And the IRS is specific that it must be used for qualified disability expenses, and then they define what qualified disability expenses mean. Qualified disability expenses are expenses related to the beneficiary's disability or blindness, must be for the benefit of the person with a disability, which basically means don't withdraw money from your ABLE account and give it away as a gift to somebody else. It's got to be used for that person. So, and then they get really specific, and they actually talk about what are some of the things that a person could use an ABLE account to pay for. The first one is education. Let's face it, 529 accounts were established for long-term higher education costs. And this 529 program can be used to pay for those same costs as well. Education, tuition, books, fees, computers, the costs of higher education can all be paid for out of an ABLE account, just like a 529 education, like a MET, Michigan Education Trust, or an MESP, Michigan Education Savings Program. You can pay for those services out of an ABLE account as well. However, where the 529 education account ends, the ABLE account begins, because you can use your ABLE account to pay for housing, rent, mortgage, utilities, garbage removal service, internet service fees, making modifications to a home to allow for accessibility. Those are all allowable expenses out of an ABLE account. You can pay for the basic living expenses, things like groceries and shampoo and toiletries and the kinds of things that a person would use on an everyday regular basis. You can pay for those things out of an ABLE account as well. One of the number one reasons that individuals with disabilities are underemployed or unemployed is a lack of specialized transportation. It's hard to get, in some cases, individuals with disabilities from one place to another. Well, now you can pay for your your transportation costs out of your ABLE account, whether that's an Uber or a bus pass or the purchase of a wheelchair accessible vehicle that can cost in excess of $60,000, or if you need to take a flight or a ferry from one place to another, moving that person with a disability and paying for their transportation is an allowable expense out of an ABLE account. You can also pay for assistive technology. One of the examples in the 529 legislation talks about how kids with autism use iPhones and iPads to help them take their medications on time, to help them get from home to school and from school to work, to make sure that their schedules are kept and to make sure that they stay on the correct routes. And that's a perfect example of an assistive technology use that could be paid for out of an ABLE account. The services and costs associated with an iPhone are absolutely assistive technology. Things like e-readers that helps people with low vision. Those are all acceptable uses out of an ABLE account. In fact, any health or wellness payment, if you have to go to the doctor for a lab fee or an x-ray or diagnostic testing, or the copays associated with a hospitalization, you can pay for those out of your ABLE account as well. If you have to purchase a piece of durable medical equipment like a wheelchair or a walker or some other type of medical equipment that's going to help a person navigate and get from place to place, those are allowable expenses. Any pharmacy costs are allowable expenses out of an ABLE account. So a lot of people use this account just like a health savings account, but specifically for individuals with disabilities. If you have to pay for the services of a CPA or an accountant or any other type of professional in the administration of a person with a disabilities matters, you can pay for those services out of an ABLE account. One of the questions I get quite often, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this coming up, is the ability of an ABLE account to be utilized with a special needs trust. And absolutely, they can be worked in conjunction. It is not a mutually exclusive situation. You can have an ABLE account and a special needs trust. One of the problems with special needs trusts is they can be very, very expensive. And paying for an attorney to establish and fund a special needs trust can be done utilizing an ABLE account. You can take money out of the ABLE account and put it into the special needs trust. You can take the money out of the ABLE account to pay for the attorney to establish the special needs trust. So they can work together. First and foremost, I am not a special needs trust attorney. I am not an expert on special needs trusts whatsoever, but I have a number of clients who have both a special needs trust and an ABLE account. They utilize the ABLE account for every day or every month type expenses, and they utilize the special needs trust for long-term, what happens when, for instance, mom and dad pass away, or the guardian passes away, or the Social Security rep is transferred to someone else, for those long-term situations. The other thing that an ABLE account can be used to pay for is end-of-life expenses. No longer do you have to prepay for funeral and cremation expenses. You can pay for those expenses out of an ABLE account after the beneficiary passes away. It's a great opportunity to spend that money. Let's face it, you were saving that money to allow the person to utilize throughout their life. If they pass away unexpectedly, you can pay for those types of services out of the ABLE account when they pass away. Okay, some of the benefits of having and utilizing an ABLE account. A MiABle account is an addition to, not a replacement for other government programs. Medicaid eligibility is never impacted. ABLE could impact SSI benefits when the balance goes above $100,000. Now, again, at $16,000 a year, it's going to take you a long time to exceed that $100,000 balance, but it is something that some families are concerned with. The main benefits of an ABLE account is you can keep all your benefits. The same benefits that you had before you had the ABLE account, you can have after you have the ABLE account. It's owned by the individual with the disability, and it allows authorized representatives, whether that's family members or powers of attorney, to open and manage the account on behalf of a person with a disability. But the money is owned by the person with a disability. It's their money. ABLE accounts are affordable. They're only $45 to $60 a year. And the reason for that range is because you get a discount if you sign up for electronic documents. Let's face it, it's 2022. It's a lot cheaper, easier, and faster for us to send your account statements electronically than it is to send them in the mail. But if you want them in the mail, we can still send them that way. Another great point for especially Michigan residents is there's a tax deduction for contributions. I talk to a lot of families and I talk to a lot of parents who have kids that have disabilities. And I ask them, do you give your child an allowance? And if you do, I say, stop doing that. Start making a contribution to their ABLE account in lieu of their allowance and give yourself an income tax deduction. An individual can take up to a $5,000 income tax deduction on their Michigan income tax return, and a joint husband-wife can take up to a $10,000 income tax deduction on their Michigan income tax return. So it's a great way to give yourself essentially a free income tax deduction because you're going to make those contributions anyway. You're already giving that child, $25 or whatever it is. Just put it in their ABLE account and give yourself that tax deduction. Michigan also has a high aggregate limit. We raised our 529 limit to $500,000. So those high net worth individuals who are interested in sheltering assets, an ABLE account is a great way to shelter assets to pay for the services that you're going to need to pay for anyway. So it's a great way to save for those future events. And like I said, $500,000 before we stop contributions. We offer 6 different investment options. Obviously, those investments have different levels of risk associated to them, and they have different levels of costs associated to them. However, all of our investment costs are under 1/2 of 1%. So our investment costs are not really that high. And let's talk a little bit about returns on those investments. So I know that OUCARES, when they put out this, this presentation, they offered you a chance to ask questions ahead of time. So full disclosure, I wanted to prepare to answer some of those questions ahead of time. So we offer 6 different investment options, and our investment portfolio has been open since December 13th of 2021, which means it's barely been open for 3 months. And I don't know if any of you follow the stock market with much vigor, but since December of 2021, 3 months, the stock market has done really, really poorly. The S&P 500 is down 6%. The NASDAQ is down 12.8% since December. The Russell 2000, which measures a lot of the smaller companies, is down 7.4%. So I preface what I'm about to tell you about our investment portfolio with those numbers, because I want you to understand that it's not just the MiABle portfolio that's down. It's the entire market across the board, wide spectrum. The market is down. A lot of that has to do with some of the current events that are going on, inflation, things of that nature. But someone specifically asked, what kind of returns has the MiABle program been getting? So I'm going to answer that question. We have 6 different investment options available to you right now. Our aggressive is down 6.4%. Our moderately aggressive is down 5.6%. Our growth portfolio is down 4.8%. Our moderate portfolio is down 3.95%. Our moderately conservative portfolio is down 2.71%. And our conservative portfolio is down 1.12%. So I don't know if you recognized a trend going on there, but all of our portfolios are down in conjunction with the market. However, even our most aggressive portfolio, that's what it's called. It's called the aggressive portfolio, is down less than the whole Standard & Poor's 500 list. It's down by a great margin, the entire NASDAQ portfolio. And it's also down from the Russell 2000. So the intention with these current investment portfolios is not to make them complex. It really isn't. But they do offer some degree of risk, because everybody's level of risk is personal. It's a personal risk assessment. And whether you decide to be aggressive or conservative, we have different flavors for all of those different investment types. But I did want to answer the question, what's the market done and what is the MiABle portfolio at right now? Okay, I already talked a little bit about how an ABLE account can work with a special needs trust. Again, I just want to stress that I am not a special needs trust expert. I am not an advocate for a MiABle account as a replacement for a special needs trust. Quite frankly, there are things that I can't do. I can only deal with money. I can only deal with $16,000 a year, unless you're the disabled person has a job, and then I can deal with a little bit more. Where a special needs trust can deal with property, can deal with long-term ramifications, can deal with excessive funds on top of $16,000. So again, I'm in no way an advocate that if you have an ABLE account, you don't need a special needs trust. I know they can work together, and just like an investment decision is a personal decision, whether a person needs a special needs trust and an ABLE account, or instead of an ABLE account, or that's a personal individual question. And that was another one that came up in the pre-meeting. So I just wanted to answer that as well. Okay. Another one of the special features that ABLE offers is a debit card. In addition to our 6 different investment options, we have the ability to create a checking account on behalf of a person with a disability that allows individuals to utilize a debit card. Looks just like this. You can't see it because of the camera, sorry. But the bottom line is it's an optional feature that you can utilize with your MiABle account to make paying for things at places like grocery stores and pharmacies easy. You can use it anywhere that Visa is accepted, or excuse me, MasterCard. Another cool feature of the MiABle program is the ability to crowdfund. Obviously, we have parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents and friends who might want to make a contribution to an ABLE account. We have a UGift platform. It's really easy to use. All you have to do is when you establish the account, you'll get a code that allows you to tell people, hey, here's my ABLE code. You can make a contribution. So it's a great way to solicit donations from people because, again, for far too long, a number of people have been told, please do not give my daughter, my son, my person any money because either they might lose their benefits or they may not be good at handling money. Here's a place where you could put it where it's got some of those security controls as well. Anyone can make a contribution to an ABLE account, and anyone who makes a contribution who lives in Michigan and files Michigan taxes can give themselves an income tax deduction. So I'm going to pause there momentarily so I can take a drink, because what we're going to do next is I'm going to walk you through what it looks like to enroll in our ABLE accounts. And so that you have at least an inkling as to what it looks like so that you're not, so that you can be familiar with the screens when it happens. One thing I want to mention is, in addition to the slides that I'm displaying, all of the information that I have shared with you is available on our website, which I will show to you at the end. So if you have any questions, if I have spoken too quickly, I tend to do that sometimes. Or if you have, I have a specific question about my individual case, please feel free to peruse our website, or you can address those questions to our customer service line. I did put in the chat our email address and the phone number to contact customer service if you have any questions about establishing an account or the rules or anything like that. So once you click on our website and decide to open an account, I believe that the actual link says start saving. Once you click on start saving, we immediately ask you to read the plan disclosure statements. We want you to look for your investment options. Fair warning, we are going to ask for a lot of demographic information: names, addresses, dates of birth, social security numbers, phone numbers, because we have to go through the same identity theft checks, money laundering checks that any other financial institution has to go through. We have to make sure that we're dealing with the people who that they say that they're dealing with. So I just want to preface it with that because you're going to need that information in order to establish the account. And one thing I always want to make sure is clear with everybody: when we ask for the account owner, the AO, that is the person with the disability. The person with the disability is the account owner. If you are the parent, guardian, sibling, spouse, that whole long list of people that can open an account on behalf of a account owner or person with a disability, you are called the authorized legal representative. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Account owner has the disability. Authorized legal representative is typically a parent or guardian, power of attorney, that kind of thing. So the first thing we ask for is the account owner's name, email, phone number, the basic kind of information. And then we ask the question, who's opening the account? Is it the person with a disability? Is it the parent of a minor? Or is it an authorized legal representative, authorized individual of an adult? And this is a dynamic enrollment process. So based on how you answer the questions, you're going to get a different set of screens because you've answered the question differently. So if you see on the left there where it says steps, those steps will change based on if you are the person with the disability or the parent or the legal guardian or authorized legal representative of an adult. And the next thing we're going to ask, and I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because you don't need to see, I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, we're going to need address, phone numbers, email addresses, obviously. Let's face it, it's 2022. It's a lot easier to get in touch with people via email than it is phone numbers. We will need the full social security number, full dates of birth, whether they're a US citizen or not. The IRS asks for this information. This information will not make any determination on the type of ABLE account or the type of account. They just want to know what type of disability people are listing as they're registering for their ABLE account. And you can look through those on our website if you have any questions. But again, the difference between a code 3 and a code 4 makes no difference to us in the ABLE community. It's simply a demographic piece of information for the IRS and the Social Security Administration. I talked earlier about eligibility. This is where you tell us about your eligibility. You're either eligible for SSDI, eligible for SSI, or you have some sort of disability certification from a physician who indicates that this disability will last longer than a year. You also have to acknowledge that you can only have one ABLE account. So if you have an ABLE account open under this name and social security number in another state, you have to close and transfer the money into this account if that's what you so choose. Next, again, this is about the authorized individual. So if you have a parent, guardian, power of attorney, we're going to need obviously their demographic information as well so that we can get in touch with them if we need to. I mentioned that we have 6 different investment options. You don't have to choose one. You can make selections into all 6 of those investment options if you'd like. And in addition to those 6 investment options, we also have the checking option that allows you to utilize the debit card wherever those debit cards are accepted. In addition to those checking accounts, you also, in addition to the debit card that's associated with the checking account, we can also write you some checks. If you want to utilize checks, I know for some of us, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but some of us old school people still utilize checks. I use my debit card a lot more, but there are some instances where I do write checks. So if that's an option that you want to avail yourself, this is how you can do that. You can just click on, I would like to order a box of checks as well. Next, we ask how you want to make contributions. It's really easy to make contributions. We can do it with simply a bank account number and the routing number to that bank. We also allow payroll deductions. So if your employer would like to make contributions to an ABLE account on your behalf, we can set that up through your payroll office. We also obviously accept checks. We will create a form that will allow you to send it's like a deposit slip at the old bank account. That makes it a lot easier. And you can set up recurring payments as well. So if you want to do a regular contribution to your ABLE account from your bank account, you can set that up as well and say, I want to send $100 a month or $25 a week or whatever that is. You have the ability to do that through the ABLE program. I mentioned earlier that we offer a discount to those individuals who select electronic delivery of documents. Here is the slide where you can do that. Again, it's 2022. I think most people now get their statements electronically or have them available electronically if they don't have them sent to them. But it's just an easier way for us to get in touch with you if we need to, if there's something on your account that we have a question on. It's a much faster way to do it. And it actually costs you less money to have an ABLE account if you allow electronic delivery of documents. And then, of course, we go through the process of, do you agree to all this? This will be under penalty of perjury, so you need to make sure that you are answering all the questions accurately. We then ask you to create a username and password. We will also ask you security questions that most of you are probably familiar with by now. what was the first kind of car you drove? Who was your third grade teacher? Those kinds of questions that only you know. We will also ask you to create or to choose a security image. This is to prevent those types of phishing attacks where people try to get your username and password. And once you select that, there is a final check for you to go through and make sure that the addresses are correct, the phone numbers are correct, all the numbers that you've entered are correct. Those of us with big hands sometimes tend to fat finger things, especially when we go too fast. I've been accused of that before. But it's a final chance for you to make sure that all of your submissions are correct. Everything is the way that it should be. And you have the chance to change those if there is in fact an error in there somewhere. I mentioned earlier that if you want to make a contribution by check, here's what the deposit slip looks like. The minimum initial contribution is $25. If you do have an ABLE account that does have a zero balance, either because you never contributed to it or you have withdrawn the money from it, those accounts are deactivated after 60 days of having a zero balance. So if you're going to open an account, please at least fund it so that it can be utilized to pay for those qualified disability expenses. Okay, once you have selected that, you will get a congratulations. It will have an account number on it so that you can print that. There may be situations where we will need documentation, like in the cases where there was an old guardian that's no longer active and now the new guardian, we may need to see that. We have a very easy way for you to upload documents right to the account so that we can verify, yes, this is the new guardian. We have also had some situations because a number of people with disabilities have absolutely no credit history whatsoever. And we've had to ask for documentation of identity, whether that's a state ID card or something that verifies a social security card. There have been situations where we've had to verify an address and we need, for instance, like a copy of a utility bill that has the address on it. It's not common, but it does happen. I just want to make you aware of that. But it is really easy to upload those documents. You can take a picture with your phone and upload it that way. But again, it is something that does happen. Okay, with that, I'm going to go to the next screen and I'm going to take another breath. So our website is savewithable.com. Once you're on that website, there are a number of states. We are now, as of December, part of the National ABLE Alliance in conjunction with 19 other states and the District of Columbia. We are attempting to build the greatest ABLE program in the United States. But when you initially log on to savewithable.com, you will see the icons for all the other states as well as Michigan. Make sure you click on the correct state. If you want to open a Michigan ABLE program, please click on my program as opposed to any of the other ones that are out there. Our client services number is 844-656-7225. They are there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, to help individuals with the ABLE program. How do I navigate? How do I make a contribution? How do I make a withdrawal? How do I get a debit card? I'm having trouble with enrollment. That's what they're there for. They are there to help walk people through the enrollment process to allow people to get enrolled in the program. They can answer general questions. Is this a qualified disability expense? They cannot offer investment advice. So they will not tell you to put money in the conservative versus the aggressive versus the growth model. They're not stockbrokers, they're not financial advisors, and neither am I. I'm not going to tell any of you which contributions you should put into or which investments you should put your contributions into. That's not my role. I can tell you about the investments and I can tell you, the returns and how much they cost and those kinds of things, but I'm not going to tell you which one you should be in. I am always, and Kristen and Amy will attest to this, I am always looking for events to talk with people, families, about the ABLE program. Please feel free to email me at myable@michigan.gov. Parents, disability advocacy groups, school groups, transition organizations. Anybody who might benefit from listening to me talk for about 48 minutes about the ABLE program, please feel free to email me. I am always looking for events. We are starting, fingers crossed, to get back to actual real live, I get to shake hands events. They have been few and far between. I have still been on the little box, the Zoom box, for the past 2 years, but we are starting to open up a little bit, at least here in the greater Lansing area and some of the outlying areas. So depending on the situation, I have driven from Escanaba to Detroit to Niles to Oakland to anywhere where people want to listen to me talk ABLE. So please feel free to contact me. Furthermore, if you have policy questions, if you have problems with the website, feel free to email me. Again, that's myable@michigan.gov. I am there to help if there's anything that I can do. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to stop sharing because I want to see if anybody has any questions. See, I gotta look up here now because it's up here. But I do want to mention that we are hosting monthly seminars, webinars of this exact same content. Our next one is March 16th, right? Yeah, it's the 3rd. March 16th at 6 p.m. If you go to the MiABle Facebook page, you can sign up. They are the 3rd Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. They're held via Zoom, just like this. The content will be very similar to what you have just seen. So if you want to listen to me talk again for another 45 minutes, please feel free to log back in. If you have family members or other members of the disability community who you think might benefit from this, you can send them to our Facebook page and they can sign up to see the same webinar. The slides are the same, the jokes are the same, the guy will be the same, but I'd be happy to talk with anyone at that event as well. And if you think of a question that you didn't ask tonight, you can ask it Wednesday the 16th as well. So with that, I'm going to look and see if there are any questions. And if you have any questions, there's only 25 of us in here, so I don't think we'll talk over each other too much. I have a question. Jim has a question. Jim Kern, you're first on my list.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you too.
Good. I actually have 2 questions.
Okay.
One, if you put all your money in the different investment accounts and you want to take cash out, do you have to move it to the checking account?
Yes.
And how do you do that?
It's really easy to do. You can do it right online. You can say, I need to send everything from the conservative fund into checking, and then you can use your debit card. Just like you move money from your savings account to your checking account when you've got a big bill, same kind of situation.
Okay, so I can move part of it, not all of it.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Second question, the accounting of this. So, you know, this can only be used for these expenses that you listed. How do you keep track of that, or do you have to keep track of that?
How do you keep track of it is completely up to you. We do send a quarterly statement that will have all of your deposits, contributions, and withdrawals and your investment changes. Here's my answer on what do you need to look out for. Neither the IRS nor the Social Security Administration, to my knowledge, has ever audited anyone's disability expenses. Because let's face it, when Congress was debating this, one of the senators actually asked, do you want this to be able to pay for everything? And the person testifying said yes, because the needs of a kid with autism vary greatly from a person who has ALS, from a person who's a quadriplegic, from a person who's blind to a person who's deaf. Their needs are all varied. And to try and make a list of the things that a person with autism spectrum needs, and they knew they wouldn't be able to do that. So it is intentionally broad. That being said, we do have a handful of things that I think personally, you're gonna have a hard time justifying to the IRS that that's a disability expense. Things like jewelry, you're gonna have a hard time justifying that a diamond tiara is a disability expense to the IRS. Lottery tickets, going to the casino, those types of things.
Yeah,
have
I
a
just
hard
didn't
time
know if every
justifying
time you went to the grocery store and bought shampoo or something like that, you had to keep track of,
Yeah, and that is one of the things that I talk about with my clients is I would be hesitant to use it for those everyday things. And let me tell you why. Because if you're going to the grocery store to buy bread and milk and butter and eggs and shampoo and toilet paper, those are all allowable expenses. I completely agree with you. And I don't even think the IRS would disagree with me. But those places also sell alcohol and Marlboros and casino and lottery scratch-offs. If the IRS says, okay, I see that Oakland, you guys have Myers, right? Everybody has Myers. Myers sells all that stuff from clothing to lottery tickets. Do you really want to keep that Meyer receipt for 7 years to show the IRS, see, I didn't buy lottery tickets? I don't want to do that. So that's why I encourage my clients, use this account for what it's for. Those types of things that you know are going to be allowable. So healthcare costs, education costs, transportation costs. If it's on that list that I displayed earlier of qualified disability expenses, you'll be just fine. It'll be really easy for you to say to the IRS, I went to the pharmacy and I used this. I went to the, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but
I got it.
That's the answer that I give for those situations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for being here.
Mhm.
Karen, I see a hand. You got to take yourself off mute though.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
2 questions. That when you enroll the disabled person, is his email address or hers and his phone number the one that has to be in the enrollment form, or can
No.
it be the representative?
It can be the representative.
Okay, and then how much in a year's time can you withdraw from an account?
There are no limits to withdrawals other than the amount that's in the account. So let's say today, I've done such a great job of selling you this program and you have a high net worth, you want to go contribute $16,000 today. Now, obviously there are going to be some with banks and all that kind of stuff, but there is nothing that's preventing you from taking that $16,000 out next week.
But it will come out of the investment, one of the investment accounts, and then be transferred to a checking account?
That's correct, yes.
So don't they have any concern about having a base amount of money that they can invest without it being removed?
No, you could. Now, here's one thing that they held over from the 529 area, the old legislation. You can only move deposited money twice per calendar year. So if you decide to change your investment options, the stock market starts really rallying and you want to move everything into the most aggressive, you can only do that twice per calendar year. But moving money from the investment accounts into the checking account does not constitute an investment change. So you could, the really short answer to your question is you're only limited to the amount that's in the account. So if you have, $60,000 in the account and you want to buy a special needs van, you can take all $60,000 of that out and buy that special needs van.
Okay, and who are the investment companies that are doing the investments?
That's a great question. We utilize the National ABLE Alliance, like I said, is 19 different states in the District of Columbia. I always forget to add them. We have a company called a Census who handles a lot of 529. So their investments are in things like Vanguard and BlackRock and some of those companies. I don't know because they actually reallocate investments often. But if you go to our website, you can get the information on each of our different investment portfolios and the options that are contained therein. All that information is on our website and the types of companies as well. But it's not just held, for instance, by the state of Michigan. It is invested in national funds, national stocks, international stocks and funds.
And there was also some concern about, for example, my grandson, then can he if he has a checking account, or can he move the money over? And can he take out as much as he wants? And how do you get the individual to be responsible for their purchases? And also, how does the federal government audit this thing? I mean, every 7 years, or, I mean,
Well, okay, let me answer the second question first, because that's a lot easier answer.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, the federal government has never audited an ABLE expense. Now, you and I both know that eventually it will happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And I think it's simply a function of the fact that these accounts are so new. They've only been around since 2014, 2015. So I do believe it will happen at some point, and sure as shooting, somebody is going to try and claim a Diamond Tiara as a disability expense. At some point it will happen. So I can't really answer your question as to what they're looking for, because it hasn't happened yet. Your first question, hold on, let me see if I remember it. Oh, that is a sticky one, okay? Because obviously when you have individuals with disabilities, there are individuals with disabilities who are more than capable of handling their finances. There are some who will never be capable of handling their finances. And then there's that window in the middle where sometimes they make good decisions and sometimes they don't make good decisions. And unfortunately, that's not just people with disabilities, that's everybody.
Yeah.
And we do offer those types of controls where you can set limits on, here's what the debit card will allow for you. Now, that being said, are there going to be situations where a person with a disability makes bad financial decisions with their ABLE account? Yep, it will happen. We try to minimize that as much as possible, but I don't want to blow smoke at you and tell you, no, it never happens. It's going to happen, and it will happen. Just like it happens in the real world to people without disabilities.
right. So, but that gives maybe the personal representative or something, some control.
Yep.
Or how much they spend, so that my grandson wouldn't buy $1,000 worth of computer games.
Right.
Which is
Yep.
what he'd like to do. So, yeah, okay. And then we also do have a revocable special needs trust, which will become irrevocable when I pass away.
Okay.
And what you're saying, and unfortunately, my son will have to be the trustee of it, so for his nephew. But you're able to work with both those things.
Yes. Yes.
And
They can work
mesh
together.
them together.
Yep.
So they don't preclude each other.
Correct. They are not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
In fact, I advise a lot of my clients, especially clients that are doing we've got current expenses that we need to meet. And I know I've got to buy or something extravagant. Here's a place where you can start parking that money without jeopardizing your eligibility.
Oh, one last question.
Sure.
Does this have anything to do with people that are on Medicare? Does this only apply to people with SSI and SSDI?
I am not an expert on Medicare. I worked for Medicaid for 5 years, but so I can't because Medicare is not needs-based, and I'm speaking from my experience. Medicaid is needs-based, meaning if you have the need. Medicare typically is just age-based or disability-based. So I don't want to speak too much on that because that's not my area of expertise, but I would suggest getting with a caseworker with the Social Security Administration. They may be able to answer that question a little better than I can.
Okay.
I see another hand, Trevor.
Hi, Scott. I wanted to ask a question. What happens if the disabled account owner is no longer a Michigan resident?
Great
What
question.
hap-
Great question. And I'm going to go out on a limb and assume you're not Trevor, but that's okay. We have a number of clients who are out of state. So there is no residency requirement. So you could open an account here in Michigan, move to California, and keep your ABLE account here in Michigan. You also could decide, you know what, California offers these special incentives, so I want to transfer that money to the California program. Or you open an account in Michigan, you move to California, and you hate California's program, and you want to open an account in Texas. You can do that too, because there are no eligibility or restrictions regarding residency. So it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter where you started living, doesn't matter where you end up. You can have an ABLE account anywhere.
But the person doing the contributing, he only gets a tax deduction if you live in Michigan.
Not necessarily. Okay, let me answer that two different ways. The person who makes the contribution gets the deduction. So whether that's the person with a disability or their family, they're the one that gets the income tax deduction. And it depends on their state. There are a number of states that have what's called reciprocity agreements, and you'd have to check with those individual states, that will allow you to take an income tax deduction on a contribution to an out-of-state 529 program. It depends on the state.
Are there quite a few states that have this disability savings program?
There are 46 programs out there. I could probably name the 4 states that don't have a program: Wisconsin, Idaho, darn it, one of the Dakotas, and I can't remember the other one. So almost all states have a program. And even those states that don't have a program, they do allow, like for instance, Michigan. I do a lot of marketing in Wisconsin because I know those clients need the program.
Okay, well, I don't want to move to Idaho or Iowa, so
Okay,
thank you very much.
you're welcome. Thank you for calling. Thank you for calling. Like I'm a radio show. Okay, sorry, I actually checked. I checked the chat. Okay, is there any place where you can get the investment option literature ahead of the time before signing up? Yes. If you go to our website, I'm going to move this down here so I'm actually looking at you. If you go to our website, you can look at the investment literature before signing up. You can look at the enrollment slides before signing up. All of this information is available on our website, savewithable.com. So you can roll over from a 529 to the ABLE plan. What steps do you need to do that? I'm going to direct you, Jim, to our website again. There's a form that's available that says roll over from a 529 to the ABLE account. And can you move MESP? Yes, MESP is a 529. So yes, you can move either MESP or MET to the ABLE program. BCL says, thank you. You're very welcome. Yeah. Okay. I'm looking. I see no more questions.
Scott, it is 7:05. Do you want to take any last minute questions maybe? If anybody has them?
Absolutely. The floor is open to anybody. I do just want to give one more plug for my webinar on March 16th at 6 o'clock. You can direct people to the Facebook page and they can sign up there and listen to me chat. So
Awesome.
But again, both Amy and Chris, I know Kristen's not here, but thank you so much for having me because like I said, OU's always been #1 for me. So I appreciate the chance to come back and talk to you guys.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming out. There's always a lot of interest when we offer your program. So I know that there's a lot of need for this information. So thank you so, so much, Scott.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. That does conclude our session for tonight. We really appreciate everybody being here and wish you a great evening. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.